Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to INA's CCIE Data Center Version 2 Transition Technologies course. My name is Brian McGann, as most of you probably already know. I am a CCIE in Data Center as well as a couple other CCIEs and a Cisco Certified Design Expert. You guys can see my email address there. Also my Twitter, my LinkedIn, if you guys want to follow me, and then any questions you have after class, feel free to get in touch with me. Okay, so starting to get into our technical content. First up, what is this class to begin with? The DCV2 Transition Technologies. Mainly what we're going to be focusing on is what are the technical topic changes, what are the hardware changes, what are the software changes from CCIE Data Center version 1 to CCIE Data Center version 2. So it's not really meant to be an exhaustive class on all of the technologies. And after this class, there are going to be individual new technology classes that are going to be going through these topics in much more detail. So this week we will be going through ACI and go through the API controller, talk about the overall system of how ACI works. I have some demos planned of what we're going to do on the in terms of the demos, like on the GUI. Also, one of the other main focuses is going to be BGP VXLAN. But we'll get to that in more detail later about what specific technical topics that we're going to be covering. But the point here is that the class is not exhaustive in terms of every single topic that's going to be on the blueprint. So it's more kind of just an intro to get you to have a jump start. If you've already been studying for Data Center version 1 and now you're transitioning to V2, now that the new exam blueprint is live. We want to know what are the major changes, and then what do we need to focus on in terms of the newer technologies. Okay, so as I mentioned, we are going to be going through technical topics this week. We're going to be going through some demos on the command line, on the GUIs, talk about the new components that are part of the blueprint. But there are going to be more detailed deep dive courses that are going to be coming out after this, and that's one of the things that we'll talk about a little bit later in the week. What is the specific schedule for those classes and the way that they're going to run? So this time around, we're going to be doing a little bit more focused courses, shorter courses on individual topics. Like we'll do one that's on, ACI. We'll do one on VXLAN. We'll have some on UCS. So ultimately, it's going to rebuild the entire playlist for all of the topics that are within the overall blueprint. But we're going to be redoing them I'm going to be redoing them. With the new topology changes and the new hardware and software details. So specifically today, what I want to talk about is what changed in the hardware, what changed in the software. We'll also look at what changed in our particular topology, so what boxes were added, what boxes were removed, what are the topics that were added and removed, so from a technical point of view, obviously. What the plans are for the rest of our product lines. Like I know a lot of people I have questions about the rack rentals. Okay, rack rentals will be back online in a couple weeks, and we'll talk about the specifics of that. We'll talk about what are going to be the changes in the workbooks, and then the other live classes, and the live bootcamp as well. Last but not least, we're going to talk about some recommended resources, and we'll see that since a lot of these topics are so new, there's not a ton of books out there for these topics. There's not a ton of documentation on a lot of this stuff. It's kind of, trial by fire, as we'll see as we're going through some of these configurations. But one of the best resources is going to be the Cisco Live sessions. So we'll talk about some of the ones that I've watched and I would recommend for you guys to take a look at. And then, beyond that, like I said, beyond today, we'll then get into our actual technical demos. So throughout the rest of the week, we'll basically split this into two parts. We'll have just kind of a general overview of the technology, like what is VXLAN before we get into the implementation. What is ACI? How does it change the overall design of the network? And then, of course, we'll look at the specific implementations. We'll talk about today what are the major topic domains that we're going to be going over. Like someone asked, will I be covering Lisp? Yes, Lisp is part of the new scope. The locator independent separation protocol, or the location independent separation protocol. So we will be going through Lisp. Not a huge focus of the exam, though. What the two main changes are going to be, as I mentioned before, are ACI, which is the Nexus 9Ks, and then also the BGP VXLAN. They basically are the same solution. The difference is it automated, managed by the GUI, which is going to be the ACI, or is it going to be a manual design that we're going to do from the CLI, which is basically the BGP version. Within the scope of the blueprint, they define that as policy-driven and non-policy-driven fabric. So policy-driven being the APIC, the application, the policy controller, and then the actual ACI switches like the 9K spines and 9K leaves, which we'll get into in more details. But our main technical demos that we're going to be going over are going to be mainly based on those two topics: BGP, EVPN, VXLAN, quite a mouthful there, and then the application-centric infrastructure, or the ACI. Then we'll talk about where to go from here in terms of the the upcoming products and the upcoming class releases.